Right, let's do our last question or last part for question 4, which is part 2 of 4b2. Right, in the sketch below, the graph of f of x equals to 3 to the power x. The graph G is the reflection of the graph of f in the line y is equal to x. And then determine with the aid of sketches given above the values of x for which log of x to base 3 or log base 3 of x is less than or equals to 0. Right? Where is the inverse function of f? So we're talking about what? We're talking about g of x here. This is the inverse function we're talking about, the inverse of f. Right. Now, where is this function less than or equals to 0? I'll start with equals to 0. It is equals to 0 at this point here. That's where the function is equal to 0, when x is equals to 1. Right. And then what about less than, below the x-axis? Remember, we talked about this in part 1 of 4b2. Right. Below the x-axis means g of x here is less than 0. Okay. So this is where the graph, this is the x-axis. Let me use dotted lines for the x-axis. And then if you check here, between x is equals to 1 and x is equals to 0. This is where the graph, this graph, is below the x-axis. So between 0 and 1. But you have to be very, very careful here. Actually, the graph seems like to be touching the line, but it's not supposed to be touching them. Our y-axis there is the asymptote, it's our vertical asymptote. So the graph is not touching the y-axis. Y-axis is the asymptote. So you have to be very, very careful here. So our x cannot be equals to 0 because x is equal to 0 is the asymptote. Okay, please take note of this. It says less than or equals to. Less than or equals to. So we cannot include 0 here because it is what? It is an asymptote. But this point here, the 1, we have to include it because at this point, the graph is equals to 0. You see that? Okay, so therefore, where is this function? Log base 3 of x is less than or equals to 0. So it should be between, it means x should be greater than 0. You see that 0 is not included, okay, but less than or equals to 1. This 1 is included, okay, right. And then, or you can write using the interval notation and say x element of 0 not included, but 1 included. You see that? When it's included, we use the square bracket. Not included, we use the round bracket. So we're done with question 4, the whole of question 4. We're going to meet in our next lessons when we do question 5 of this paper. Thank you very much.